Hello and welcome to today's Search Engine Journal webinar. We are here with the Uberall team. I have Matt, Director of SEO Partnerships, and Sebastian, Solutions Manager for EMEA. Gentlemen, thank you so much for being here for your very first SEJ webinar.
Thank you very much for having us. Yeah, excited to be here.
Thanks, Heather.
Awesome. So today we are here to talk about local and ways that you can improve your local marketing strategies. And we're going to go through a very awesome case study. But first, I'm going to do some housekeeping and use the chat. Let us know where you're coming in from today. If you need closed captioning, it's the CC and the top right of your screen. Just give that a click. And we do have time for a short Q&A at the end of the presentation. So if you do have any questions for this crew, use the chat box or the Q&A to let us know. If you see any questions that you like, give it a little upvote, and that'll tell us to front load those at the end of the presentation if we can. Before you leave today's call, we do have a short survey. It lets us know how today's webinar went and how we can make them more useful for you in the future. So stick around for that. And lastly, you will receive today's recording. You'll receive the slides, the recording in your inbox, and Matt and Sebastian have an offer for you at the end, so you're going to want to stay tuned for that. With that, I'm going to get out of here. Oh, no, wait, I'm sorry. We're going to change it up a little bit. We are going to launch a poll, and with that poll, we are going to ask, in order to let Sebastian and Matt know who is in the audience today, we are going to ask, how many physical locations do you have? So that poll should slide out for you. Give that a click. If not, you can find it under the polls tab. All right. With that, I am actually going to leave this time. So Matt, Sebastian, it's all yours, and I'll see you at the end of the presentation.
Thanks, Heather.
Thanks, Heather. Yeah, hi everyone and welcome. So yeah, as Heather mentioned, I'm Sebastian, Solutions Manager at Uberall, which is the location marketing platform that many restaurants use to drive growth in their locations, amongst which KFC, which we'll be touching base on today. So I'm along here alongside my colleague, Matt.
Thanks, Basti. Yeah, so I'm Matt. I'm Director of SEO Partnerships here at Uberall. I've worked in local SEO for a little over 10 years now, working with some big brands and agencies. I think on the restaurant side, obviously guys like KFC, Krispy Kreme, Nando's, Wagamama, right? So yeah, been doing this for a little while. You've probably noticed some weird references to things like buckets and whatnot. I promise this isn't a plug for Basti's Sandcastle vlog, right? We're going to be talking more about KFC, some of their challenges, and how they solve those. So really our objective today, right, for you guys is that you can come away from today's webinar and have some new, fresh ideas to hopefully implement right away.
Thanks, Matt. So before we go into the changes we've noticed in the industry, I'd like to point out, that local marketing is, for most of the companies out there in the industry, a major topic. So it's valid to ask whether it's still relevant or not. So let's check this with the numbers that you can see on the screen here. First of all, 400% is what we've seen an increase in search for open near me queries. 50% of users actually evaluate a business online through search. I do it myself for sure. And 86% of customers use maps to find businesses. So I'd say this kind of answers our question, right? So yes, it's still very relevant and it has a big influence on revenue across different industries. Now, considering what we just discussed and the audience of marketers we have here, we'd like to take the temperature with a quick poll. So how would you rate your current local marketing strategy? Now, please click on one of the options that you have popping up on the screen. We'll give that a couple of seconds.
Yeah, and that poll should pop up for you. If it doesn't, you can find it under the polls tab. And with that, Sebastian, Matt, we'll just let that play in the background and give you those results later.
Perfect. Thank you very much, Heather. So Matt, what are the biggest changes you've seen in local search for restaurant?
Yes, we want to kick off with, I guess, three of the big changes we've seen in search specifically for restaurants, right? So I think the first biggest one is, diners' expectations as it comes to search has changed pretty dramatically in, the last 10 years. So whereas we used to expect, somebody searching for a restaurant 10 years ago, pretty basic search, right? It might be restaurant Brooklyn would be a typical example of that. What's happened since that is Google and the other publishers, have invested in the amount of data they want to return to users and the amount of data that brands can actually now put on, places like Google Business Profile and Apple Maps. What we're seeing is that consumers are understanding now, hang on a minute, I can get way more information from the SERP to the point where I don't really need to go to the brand's website, right? So that search of restaurant Brooklyn then becomes, somebody on a mapping app saying, calzone near me, open now with free Wi-Fi that offers takeout, right? And you can access all of this from the SERP. So there is no need in some cases for, fast food, fast casual, for diners to actually go to, a business's website. And especially I think with, the Gen Z generation coming up that have probably never seen this mock-up we have of Internet Explorer, right? All they've ever known is smartphone access, going to a mapping app or going to a different publisher direct.
I couldn't agree more. And, I do that myself. Lately, I was actually looking for a Korean restaurant that offers Korean barbecue. And so I had to search for Korean barbecue, obviously, but there was a split between having a Korean restaurant offering Korean barbecue or not. And I found that through the menu attribute.
That's
perfect. So Matt, what's the second big challenge that you've seen?
Yeah, so I think one of the things we're noticing is that restaurants are really, really quick to invest in their kind of owned assets, right? And when I say owned assets, I mean their websites and their physical locations, their front of house, and they always look amazing and they get a huge amount of marketing budget. What we're noticing is a lot of restaurants are kind of ignoring that most of the diners, when they discover them, will be on platforms like Google, TripAdvisor, Yelp, Apple Maps. And it's brilliant that you've got, these amazing looking websites and these amazing experiences in the restaurant. But actually, if you're not managing your presence across where people are actually discovering and evaluating you, then actually, they're never even going to see the inside of your restaurant, right? Let alone or the website. So this is something where there's a bit of a disconnect where the consumer journey has changed, but a lot of restaurant brands haven't really kept up and they're still in the kind of old way of thinking.
Yeah, and to be honest, if it isn't a high-end restaurant, I'm not going to go until the website of the restaurant. I just want to find all the information directly on the mapping app. Matt, what's the last challenge that you've seen lately in the restaurants business?
Yeah, so I think this is probably a combo of the last two issues, right? And what it kind of boils down to. And really that is restaurants are still doing local search like it's 2010, right? Where you throw up your business name, address and phone number and you put your opening hours up, right? That used to be like all you needed to do in local SEO in order to succeed, right? Because it's fairly basic. What we're seeing now is if you're one of the restaurants that haven't added, a bunch of really good images that aren't taking care of your reviews and requesting your reviews, and you haven't put your menu online and you haven't got, your ordering links and bits and pieces, actually you're not going to be chosen when, somebody's searching for a restaurant or, your key categories. You're just not going to be, appearing or chosen. So I think that's one of the big things we've seen where there's definitely, winners, of which I think KFC is definitely one of them. But in any evolution of technology, there's always losers. And that's what we're seeing. Restaurants just not keeping up with consumer expectations of what they expect today.
Thanks for that, Matt. And so now that we've covered what we've seen lately in local search restaurants, let's see what this looks like in practice with one of our customers that we've been lucky to work with, which is KFC. So Matt, what's the first issue KFC had to tackle when it comes to local search?
Yeah, so before KFC started working with us, and this isn't unique to KFC, right? I see this with a huge amount of restaurant groups that we start speaking to. And I tend to kind of categorize this as the basics, the table stakes, right? What challenges were they having before? So the first thing is typically when you work within a large restaurant group, there's multiple places and multiple teams that are updating data. And typically restaurants tend to have like an internal database where they then have various teams that will take that data and then go and try and update it online as changes happen. The problem is if you've got hundreds or thousands of locations, the opportunity for human error, which happens, becomes massive due to the scale, right? So one of their first challenges was just, we've got the wrong naming conventions. We're not entirely sure that the data is going through correctly through the various teams and the various franchises, right? So the first one was just, how do we make sure consumers are finding accurate information on Google across our locations? The second thing that I tend to see that KFC was struggling with as well, because they had this manual process, right? they were only listing their locations on Google, which obviously Google is the most important publisher, right? That's going to be driving most of your traffic. But what we also know is, consumers looking for restaurants might be on something like Apple Maps, where nearly 60% of consumers in the US have an iPhone, and they typically can't distinguish between Google and Apple Maps. They just kind of pull up the mapping app that they see, right? You've got places like Bing, where it's still the default search engine on Microsoft Edge, which is the default browser on PCs. And then you've got places like TripAdvisor and Yelp that are more specialized for restaurants. So if you're not managing your data on there, all of a sudden there's a big portion of diners that aren't going to find you because you're not listed. The third thing that we noticed, again, is just doing the basics on Google Business Profile, right? Just literally having name, address, phone number, websites, not adding your menus, not doing a huge amount with reviews because of the scale, and then not having the different attributes, right? So do you do takeout? Is it dine-in? Is it kid-friendly? Do you have vegetarian options? Those kinds of things. So if you can't answer questions like that in your data, then consumers aren't going to choose you, is typically what we're seeing.
Thanks, Matt. And that really seems like a lot to take care of, especially when you have thousands of locations. So how do they resolve these?
Yes, we think one of the first things we did with KFC is, and we do this with any big chain, right? It's like, hey, if you've got an internal database that is always up to date and that's the source of truth, what we do at Uberall is we simply take a feed of that data to make sure that publishes across the ecosystem. So completely removing any kind of opportunity for human error, right? So it's kind of one-to-one with what consumers see. The other thing we looked at, if you look at the image here, is the naming convention. So historically, they just used to have, KFC. They're all just called KFC. The challenge with that is if you're KFC, you've probably got 50 to 100 locations in London specifically. So what publishers want to see and what consumers want to see is branding match the same as the storefront, right? So if you go to a KFC, you'll literally see KFC Leicester High Street on the front of the store, right? And that makes it easier for consumers to basically understand which store they're looking at a glance, especially for things like brand search, right? The second thing we solve for them is rather than just listing on Google, you want to be listed across all of those kind of top engagement layer publishers that I mentioned, right? So this is going to be Google, Apple, Facebook, Bing, Yelp, and TripAdvisor, right? These are ones where diners are actively searching. So definitely get listed there. What a lot of other people don't realize is you should typically have 30 listings per location, not because these listings are going to be driving direct traffic, right? I know at Uberall we work with guys like Hot Frog and Manta, etc., right? These guys don't necessarily send direct traffic. I don't remember looking for a restaurant on Hot Frog in the last 10 years. But the role of those sites, if you've got accurate and complete data on them, is they act as an authority signal to Google to help you rank on Google. So I kind of position it as engagement layer, top sites diners are searching, and then you've got the authority layer, which are there to build your authority on Google. The third and final thing, just in terms of getting the basics done, is just fill out your Google Business Profile information, right? Make sure you've got your menu up there. Make sure you've got your ordering links, all of the attributes that are relevant for you. Make sure you're filling those out to make sure that as searches get more complex, and I certainly think, as AI and Google SGE kind of rolls out and evolves, you're going to be seeing more and more data pulled from GBP. So as queries get more advanced, just make sure you're giving the publishers the data to answer those questions.
Perfect. Thanks, Matt. So taking that into account, could you please comment on the following slide, and which appears to be what a perfect listing looks like?
Yeah, so a lot of businesses ask me what is a good business listing? What should it look like? So we try to break it down here to make it super simple. So I think adding professional photos is really important. If you haven't got any brand generated photos, what you can sometimes find is Google will return a auto-generated street view photo, right? Which is when the Google car's driven past and it might be slightly off center, and there might be some garbage outside the front of the restaurant and they never look too great. So you want to be in control of your images. Make sure you've got, pictures of the food and the different menu items. We know Google is intelligent enough through its AI to understand what's in those images, right? So it makes your listing more relevant. The other thing we're seeing is adding, nice looking videos, maybe someone walking through the restaurant or showing different, food that you serve, similar to like kind of TikTok 30-second type videos running through. What's interesting is if you can add these and the consumer's looking on Google Maps for restaurants for a query they've made, the videos kind of play as GIFs. So it really kind of draws in users and grows click-through rates. If you can get some quick videos added to your Google business profile, it typically helps conversion from search to decision. Obviously, we've then got reviews. You want to be getting as many positive reviews as you can. I think a big important thing is make sure you're replying to all of your reviews, right? So the replies to the reviews are almost as important for everyone that sees them as they are for the person who left the review, right? So when you're replying to the review, you want to make sure you're apologetic if you've got something wrong, explain what you're going to be doing differently. And the reason for this is when consumers are looking at reviews, they want to understand how you deal with a negative situation, right? Because it's impossible to get 1 million 5-star reviews. Like, stuff goes wrong, balls are dropped multiple times a day, and consumers know that. What they're more interested in is, okay, what happens when something goes wrong? Do you care about the customer experience? What are you going to do to put it right? So, make sure you stay close to your reviews. What you can see is for restaurants specifically, you've got this order online link. So this is going to typically take either the user to your first party ordering system if you have one, or alternatively like a DoorDash, Grubhub, Just Eat, Deliveroo, Just Eat type service, right? One thing to notice here is if you are a restaurant group and you are offering your own first party delivery service, make sure you've updated your online ordering links on Google Business Profile, because sometimes Google will just auto assign like a Grubhub or a DoorDash, right? The problem with that is you've then got your Google profile where you're sending them to a marketplace app where you're paying like 30-40% commission on each of the orders. So if you've got first party ordering, definitely make sure that's front and center for your listing, because otherwise you're just pointlessly losing margin on your food, right? Cool. I wanted to talk a little bit about business hours. Basti, can you talk to the guys a little bit how opening hours are slightly different specifically for restaurants?
Yeah, thanks, Matt. Obviously, yeah, let's move on to the topic of opening hours, and more specifically, actually, extra opening hours, and why this is actually so important for search engines like Google. Well, additional opening hours are actually crucial because this is exactly what customers search for. Now, who hasn't been disappointed with showing up at a restaurant and it wasn't open, or the dining area wasn't open, only the takeaway area was open? Those are the things that don't really want to make us come back. And on top of that, according to Google Trends, the words opening hours are the most common search term after the brand name and the near me searches. So having this information readily available is key. And a significant proportion of transaction actually occurs over the weekend, and some restaurants in specific locations stay open late on weekend nights. Now, it might be worth mentioning that opening hours have now even more importance for Google than they used to, because back in November 2023, Joe Hawkins from Sterling Sky discovered that due to an algorithm change, Google uses opening hours as a ranking factor, positioning businesses in the local pack that are marked as open. Now, if your business is not open by the time someone searches, your business will experience a decrease in ranking. And as you can see on the screen here, the ARP, so the average ranking position that was measured, as you can see on the left, was really bad, and on the right was really good. On the left, it was closed, and on the right, it was open. So as you can see, there's a major difference in ranking based on that one parameter. So, by ensuring that opening hours are accurate, especially here in the case of KFC, that especially ensuring that the opening hours are accurate and up to date on listings becomes much easier for customers to find the restaurant when they need it most. This not only improves, customer satisfaction, but also enhances the visibility and the ranking on search engines. Let's explore the importance of Q&As for local SEO and why KFC invests in publishing owner-verified content such as Q&As. So KFC leverages the Q&A feature by creating owner-verified answers to frequently asked questions, covering topics like vegan options, halal food, and more topics on that. Now, this approach is actually crucial, especially during significant periods like Ramadan, where many users leave reviews about halal restaurants. So some users even confirm to others that a restaurant is halal certified, and which shows how this information helped their customers. Now, having these questions answered not only assists customers, but also makes things easier for the team by reducing the number of calls and complaints to the customer service team. In our example right here, KFC's use of owner verified content has led to a 28% decrease in clicks on the call to action button for making calls. Now, obviously, this success is a result of closely working with the customer care team to define the Q&As and replies to Google reviews, and that really demonstrated the value of such efforts.
Yeah, I like the way some brands kind of use Q&As as mini advertisements, right? So if you've got something really unique, or I don't know, you do like a Sunday buffet, and people always ask about that. It's like, just go and post it across all your locations. Hey, do you still offer the Sunday buffet, right? One kind of more advanced thing I see some brands do is typically when you look at a Google listing, right, you'll see the Q&As on the knowledge box. Typically Google returns like the top result at the top of the listing. So you might only see one if you're looking at like the local knowledge box for that Google listing. One thing you can do is find the Q&A that you want to surface, and it's actually got like an upvote feature, kind of like Reddit or something like that. So you can actually get your team to upvote those to make sure that the one you want consumers to see is top and center of your listing. Which might be a kind of sales plug for the brand or an important piece of information, something that makes people typically choose you versus your competitors. So yeah, be sure to go and upvote the ones that you want, downvote the ones that sometimes you get slightly spurious Q&As. So make sure you're downvoting those ones and getting the good looking ones at the top. Cool. Basti, we wanted to talk a little bit about local social, which I know is coming up in a lot of conversations I'm having.
Yeah, let's dive into the importance of creating local campaigns and leveraging local influencers. Now, initially KFC was actually implementing a generic brand level campaigns which weren't localized. Before we get into more into what KFC did, there are 4 key points to highlight. It's having clear CTAs and incentives. Now, these will really shorten the customer journey and reduce the number of clicks to the final transaction. Having quality local content, mentioning store names, local details, and really localized information helps build genuine connections with the community. Having local influencers, they have a unique reach and a unique audience, and that really expands the reach of the campaign beyond the standard channels. And the final one is having honest review like content. Like, I would never say it enough, but customers trust other customers, so this really adds credibility and encourages engagement. Now, KFC really ties these strategies into their local campaigns by sharing location specific content and encouraging customers and staff to create and upload their own. Now, collaborating with local influencers to promote new products ensures the campaigns resonate locally.
Basti, can you show us a couple of examples maybe of some local campaigns that KFC have run?
Sure, Matt. Yeah, so here are actually 2 recent campaign ideas from KFC that are great examples of local strategy. The first campaign focused on London. So KFC transformed their London Waterloo site into a full Japanese restaurant to celebrate the launch of the brand new teriyaki burger. Chef Akito Greenland was involved in creating a luxurious Japanese dining experience featuring KFC as the main ingredient. And a few lucky customers enjoyed this unique event, and it was really a remarkable twist. The second campaign covered parts of England, Wales, and Scotland, and KFC collaborated with an ex-soccer player, Chris Kamara, for their Christmas campaign. And so what they did is they transformed 4 restaurants to launch the stuffing stacker burger and to welcome the festive season. Now, the campaign involved giving away free burgers to the first 50 customers at 4 drive-thrus who showed up dressed in Santa suits. Now, the initiative was a huge success, with hilarious Santa suits and significant excitement generated through social media and word of mouth. Now, as you can see, social media has become crucial for local marketing, and foodie influencers are now creating recipes using KFC products, and KFC is actually investing heavily in this platform, encouraging their restaurant teams to generate high quality, locally focused content.
I love the idea of, I'm assuming it's quite a large American audience today. I love the idea of them Googling who Chris Kamara is. That has made my day.
Yeah, definitely. So Matt, could you please share with us, the results that KFC saw after investing in their local presence?
Yeah, that's it. Because I think, a lot of brands, when you're investing in potentially a new area of marketing, CMO wants to know what to expect. CFO definitely wants to know what to expect, right? So these are some of the stats that we pulled from KFC year over year. So the first one we look at is Google Maps impressions. So this basically means how many times are those listings being seen by consumers. So this is basically driven by additional categories we've added, the additional attributes, all of the different publishers influencing the Google authority. So that's simply how many times is your listing being viewed by a consumer. So we had basically double growth in impressions. The next stat that most of the restaurants we speak to tend to care about are the clicks to driving directions. So this is basically when you look at a Google listing, you've either got the option of a phone call, a website click, or driving directions. The reason restaurants tend to care about clicks to driving directions is because that signals somebody's found them on a mapping app or on Google or on Apple, etc., and then literally clicked, "Hey phone, give me directions right now because I'm going here to eat." So we had 23% more diners basically coming into their restaurants direct. Then the third and final thing they wanted to understand was, okay, well, what's the return on investment based on everything we've put into this and what we know our average sale price is. So yeah, return 37 to 1 based on their investment. So if you're looking for some data on is it worth investing in a local marketing strategy, hopefully this shows you the kind of results to expect if you if you invest properly. Cool. Basti, can you talk to me a little bit about what restaurants should be paying attention to in the next kind of 12 to 18 months?
Sure. So just like KFC, restaurants should be present on Apple through Apple Business Connect. Now, why am I specifying Apple Business Connect? Well, it's because it's actually going to enable a couple of cool features, such as the following. So they're going to be able to have showcases, and that's actually the ability to post on local listings. They'll also be able to add logos, and that's really great for brand consistency across all of their locations. There's also this cool functionality. It's the mobile redirect. Now, KFC added this. It's actually adding the call to action to redirect to the mobile app instead of delivery apps where, just like Matt previously stated, where there's going to be a 15 or 20% commission on that. And there's plenty of other cool things that are going to be added to Apple Business Connect, but one of the most important ones is being able to measure performance through Apple Business Connect. Just like we can currently do on Google, through Apple Business Connect, restaurant chains will be able to measure their impressions, their clicks, and their engagement with their customers.
Yeah, I think that's always been one of the challenges with Apple, right, compared to Google. It's always been a bit of a black box of like, well, I know everyone's got an iPhone. I know everyone's using Apple Maps as their default mapping apps. But it's always been quite difficult to understand, well, how much traffic is this generally driving compared to Google. So I saw one study at Brighton SEO a year or so ago where it looked at, I think it was 10 different retailers, maybe 1,000 locations, where it basically showed that Apple was generating 8% of the traffic GBP does. So if you're not managing Apple, that's typically what it looks like for retail. I know Uberall is going to be running a study later this year because, we want to see what this looks like for different industries. My hypothesis, and I'm very often wrong, so don't quote me on this, is that it will be higher for restaurant versus other business categories, but more to come on that.
Don't be so hard on yourself, Matt.
Cool. Shameless plug time. We have a competition and we're giving away 15 free listing audits. So who is this for? This might be for maybe you're marketing at a brand or an agency, and it's a client, and maybe you kind of looked at local SEO and you think you're doing an okay job, or maybe you just never looked at anything and you want to understand, okay, what is it we need to be paying attention to? What we're going to be able to do for 15 of you is basically review your online listings, reviews, and social presence down to an attribute level on Google of what you need to focus on, what's going well, what you need to add to basically help you kind of kickstart your local marketing. So if everyone can awkwardly take their phones out and take a picture of their laptop screens, what you'll be taken to a survey where we'll ask you a couple of questions. And then, we'll get back to you with the winners. Cool. I think we're going on to Q&As now. Just let me work out how to pull up the questions that have come through. Cool. Basti, why don't I give you this first one? So somebody has asked, what are the top 5 GMB ranking factors and how does this differ across Apple Maps?
Yeah, I can definitely take that one. So I would say the top 5, I would actually even focus on the top 3. And, the biggest GBP ranking factor is obviously GBP signals. And when we talk about that, we talk about profile completeness. And profile completeness is exactly the different topics that we mentioned earlier, having the right address, the right opening hours, the right attributes, local specific, good images, and all of the nice data points that we've mentioned just before. So really just all the GBP signals being complete. That's really the top ranking factor. The second ranking factor is on-page signals, and that can be achieved through a store locator, which has landing pages per store. And on those landing pages, you really want to communicate locally. You want to have location-specific information, such as the city, the special offers that store is offering, the specific opening hours, and everything that is really specific to that store, and making it, personalized for that store. The third one that could outline today is reviews. So not only getting reviews, but also answering to reviews. They can be good, they can be bad, but really taking care of your customers and answering to all of the reviews that you're receiving as a business, which really shows the engagement that you're having with your customers. Let me pull up the second question for you, Matt. So, do you have tips for a multi-location business that uses the same domain? And basically here the person is saying that we want to boost local presence and scale content for all locations.
Cool. Okay. So yeah, multi-location business using the same domain. First of all, that's good, right? If you've got a multi-location brand, you want to have them all on the same domain. You don't want to be managing, 50 different domains if you've got 50 locations, because all of a sudden, all the domain authority or the link juice, right? You've made 50 times more work for yourself. So it's good that they are all on the same domain. In terms of like strategies, right? Important to obviously do the kind of GBP fundamentals. So go through, look at your business categories, run a couple of searches, see what Google's returning as the top business categories and the additional categories. There's a good tool called GMB Everywhere I tend to use for helping to optimize. It's completely free. It's like a Google Chrome add-on. I tend to use that for optimizing business categories. You've then got, completing the GBP information. I mean, Basti's kind of covered the local stuff. If I focus more like store locator, you'll want to make sure that you've got location pages for each of the different locations for the brand. And you'll want to have, store name, address, and phone number, some unique content around the store, try and make the content local, try and interlink it to the rest of your content, right? So your existing service pages. If you've got multiple stores across, 50 different states, you might want to consider the, how you basically categorize and breadcrumb those pages. So you might have different states and then a state page with all of the locations on there. What I will say is Andrew Shotland wrote a really, really good guide for store locators who runs Local SEO Guide. If you Google Andrew Shotland or local SEO guide, store locator guide, I think you'll find something really useful. I know I'm going to share some details at the end, but feel free to email me if you have any questions about your specific setup there.
Thanks for that answer, Matt. And we've got a final question here. It's how can a national business or retailer appear in localized search results at the city or state level?
Yeah, so this is the tough thing, right? Where people kind of work globally. So you might be like a bookstore that ships your books nationally. And the question is, well, I want to rank for like bookstore in Brooklyn, bookstore in Phoenix, all of these different places, right? The challenge is Google only in the local search results, right? Where you see like the 3 local businesses, the local pack or the map pack, you'll need to go through Google verification. If you don't have a store there, you're not going to get a listing within there. So your focus then needs to become, well, how do I get in the organic links, which are like the traditional blue links below, where you can start building content around those, which is a little bit more difficult. So you might have to create a page on your website that is, service in Phoenix as an example. And then you'll need to have localized content for that page and try and build some links to that page. Full disclosure, it is quite difficult to rank for locations outside of where you're physically based. It's always easier if you've got an address and a physical store or office in that location. So you can try it. You just need to consider, first of all, I normally say, like, make sure you have control of your own backyard before you start trying to target other geos, right? Make sure you're ranking in your own location. And then if like it's a non-location specific search and you can sell to anyone, then local search probably isn't going to be the best route to market. You might be better off, trying some social ads or paid search to try and break through the noise. So yeah, a little bit more expensive to acquire customers, because all of a sudden your competition's so much larger, than a local service provider who maybe has like 15, 20 competitors.
Thanks, Matt. Makes sense. And I think that's all we've got time for today.
Cool.
Right.
Yeah, just to wrap up, I know Heather's going to send out the recording and the slides. Our emails are here. We're also on LinkedIn if you wanted to ask us any questions or just nerd out about local SEO. Yeah, pretty active on LinkedIn, or drop us an email. But yeah, thank you very much for having us, Heather.
Excellent. Thank you for being here. Thank you for sharing all of your local knowledge. This was great information. I am sure that everybody watching will be looking forward to getting the recording in their inbox later today. So with that, gentlemen, thanks again for being here for your first SEJ webinar. Really appreciate having you. And we'll see everybody for the next time. Bye.
Thank you so much for having us. Thank you.
Thanks, guys.